According to recently released data, the number of eviction filings in the United States has increased by about 80% since October 2022. Despite exclusive rent prices and a worrying trend among some of the country's largest landlords to increase the rate of monthly evictions to boost their cash flow growth, official agencies report that about 13% of the U.S. population, or over 40 million people, are at risk of losing their homes this year. While businesses and investors focus on profits, more and more Americans are losing their homes and becoming homeless. Supporters of affordable housing argue we are at the edge of a precipice from which there is no return. In today's video, we'll be exposing just that. A recent analysis from the Eviction Lab at Princeton University finds that corporate landlords are evicting tenants at rates far higher than the average pre-pandemic rate. Approximately 970,000 eviction cases were filed by landlords each month in 32 U.S. cities, according to an analysis of eviction trends over the last 6 months. That's a stunning 79% rise over the previous year. Since October 2022, the average monthly increase in filings is 19.1%. Judge Anna Huberman of the Arizona court system claims that on an average day, over 1,000 evictions are filed via the court, marking a growing eviction pandemic due to the historically high cost of housing and other basic requirements. According to advocates, millions of American families with children are on the verge of homelessness as a result of the recent surge of evictions, which is affecting both urban and rural regions. Rents increased by nearly 25% year-over-year in Phoenix, where the typical monthly rent now stands at $2,261. Since at least 2016, the monthly rate of eviction filings in Maricopa County has been above 45,000. There have been 0 applications filed so far this year. Huberman, the head justice of the peace in Maricopa County, stated, "It seems like that's all we've been doing lately." Zenobia Johnson is a tenant in Phoenix who has been struggling to pay the increasing cost of housing. She said her landlord sent her with an eviction notice after she failed to pay her rent at the beginning of the year. It's unclear how she'll be able to pay the rent the following month on the salary from her telemarketing job, which she took out a loan to cover. Due to choosing her rent over her vehicle payment, she was unable to pay her expenses in March, and her automobile was subsequently repossessed. "Everything's more expensive now," the young mother of 2 lamented. "I just can't keep up. Until we can better line incomes with housing expenses," she said. She wasn't sure of what she would do. According to Sabine Brown, a senior policy researcher at the Oklahoma Policy Institute, evictions are going to continue to be a problem because with rising rents, people are having to stretch their budgets even further. A person may be on the verge of eviction with only one unexpected expense, such as medical care or a car repair. They're people, and there are kids involved. This is Oklahoma, in the heartland. Executive Director of Legal Aid Services in Oklahoma, Michael Figgins, says, "It is chronic here, just like it is in places where people seem to think that this is where the actions happen, but they're happening here too." There has been an increase in evictions across the board, including in regions with less extreme rent hikes. Even while rent hikes in Minneapolis have lagged behind the rest of the country, evictions spiked in June after the state repealed its eviction ban, and were 37% over historical norms in December. Andrea Palumbo, a housing attorney with Minnesota Homeline, a nonprofit tenant advocacy group, said, "I am talking to a lot of people who are just now getting on their feet and getting back on a decent economic footing. People keep telling me they simply need some more time. I'll soon be starting a new job, and both my spouse and I will soon be returning to our previous employment situations. We simply require a little bit more time." The Las Vegas Justice Court received almost 45,000 cases in the previous 3 months. As housing costs continue to rise and inflation hits record highs, the United States is in the midst of a severe eviction problem. Millions of Americans are at danger of homelessness as a result of the rising tide of eviction proceedings filed by landlords around the country. There has been an increase in evictions across the board, including in regions with less extreme rent hikes. This issue is felt not only in large cities, but also in more rural and industrial areas. Experts warn that 44.5 million Americans, or nearly 13% of the population, might be at risk of eviction in the next several months if nothing is done. There is widespread economic uncertainty as a result of this issue, with consumer mood falling in the United States and rents across the country continuing $800 higher than in 2019. The pre-pandemic national average for a rental was $1,062. The current value is $1,937. The shortage of accessible housing for lower-income households and the increasing number of huge, out-of-state real estate investment businesses driving up prices are both contributing factors to the continued rise in rents. Affluent investors and corporate landlords saw evictions as a chance to generate more money. But many mom-and-pop property owners who had the credit or financial wherewithal to cover rental payment arrears are struggling to pay their mortgages, property taxes, and maintain their buildings. The financial news outlet Financial Times revealed a few months ago that the investment corporation Blackstone has filed hundreds of eviction proceedings against its tenants in the states of Georgia and Florida. A nonprofit advocacy group called the Private Equity Stakeholder Project keeps tabs on private equity participation in the housing market and other industries, and their data reveals that Blackstone's eviction cases have skyrocketed since July 2022. In an interview, Jim Baker, executive director of the Private Equity Stakeholder Project, stated that Blackstone's activities are felt far and wide because of the company's position as one of the country's largest landlords. He emphasized that Blackstone's recent action to evict renters poses a danger to home security for families in the United States and throughout the world because of the company's outsized involvement in the housing industry. Blackstone has an asset portfolio valued over $326 million. The Blackstone Real Estate Investment Trust right now holds about 20% of these assets. Over half of Bright's $69 billion portfolio is invested in rental properties, the vast majority of which are located within the United States. Baker also mentioned that Blackstone expected rents for its affordable and student housing properties to increase by double digits in 2023. The business implied that it expected the evictions to boost Blackstone's cash flow in the future. According to the Housing and Urban Affairs Committee, the rate of homelessness in the United States increased by 17% in only the past year as corporate landlords put profits before people. Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio pointed out that due to rising housing costs, millions of families are priced out of the market. And with rents on the rise, a tenant's only safety net is a lack of health or a loss of income. Single-family houses, the type of residences most first-time buyers purchase, are increasingly being snapped up by speculators who then charge exorbitant rents. 28% of homes sold at the beginning of this year went to investors, Brown said in a statement. In addition, Matthew Desmond, director of the Eviction Lab and professor of sociology at Princeton University, has detailed how rents across the United States have skyrocketed since the turn of the century. In the West, he claimed, the median rent has climbed by 192%, while in the Northeast it has increased by 189% and in the Midwest by 112%. He said that last year's rent increases set a new all-time high. Portland, Oregon witnessed a 40% price increase. Newark, NJ saw a 35% increase. Orlando, FL saw a 30% increase. And Cincinnati, Ohio saw a 29% increase. Desmond questioned what families could do if the cost of housing increased by 15, 25, or 30%. They are typically already living in the least expensive flats in their area, making it impossible for them to move to more inexpensive homes. They have little choice but to scrimp elsewhere, including on food, health care, and extracurricular activities for their children. Porter's Greater Cincinnati Development Authority CEO/President Laura Brunner pondered the fate of neighborhoods where house ownership is unattainable. According to her, there is a profound impact on local families when homeownership opportunities are taken away from them. Market participants with access to money are known as institutional investors, and they might range from private equity companies to banks to REITs. Brunner warned American officials that in certain major cities, especially those in the Sun Belt, such as Atlanta, Phoenix, Tampa, Miami, and Charlotte, North Carolina, institutional investors have a far wider footprint than they admit. Brunner cautioned that this trend might lead to institutional investors owning half of all homes in the country within a decade. Yet, she emphasized that these institutional investors are not engaged in home construction. Just keep converting more and more single-family homes into rental units, and charge exorbitant rates for them. While 40 million Americans remain at danger of homelessness, Brenner said, housing is a multi-billion-dollar industry in the United States. A small group of millionaire landlords has collected a staggering $24.4 billion in profit by the year 8 March, when the 22 million renters may be without need of life by the start of summer, while their landlords reap billions in surplus income. Our system's failure to ensure a stable place to live has far-reaching consequences for the enjoyment of other civil and political liberties. An individual's capacity to work, develop equity, have a financially stable existence, and cast a ballot is all negatively impacted by housing insecurity. Vulnerable populations are disproportionately affected by housing instability, which poses a fundamental challenge to the promise of economic opportunity for everyone. The United States cannot afford to wait for another national emergency before beginning to respond. People are losing their homes and, with it, their feeling of dignity and safety. We must act quickly to prevent the problem from getting out of hand. How do you feel about this crucial issue? We appreciate you viewing and look forward to reading your feedback.